Hello, my name's Toby Olié and I'm a puppetry director and designer. I'm also the creator and performer of What Does an Anteater Eat, a short puppetry film I made in lockdown based on this amazing book by Ross Collins. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can make your own version of the Anteater puppet that I made for my short film, who is right here. You're going to need some simple materials from around your home and some very, very special artwork made by Ross Collins especially for this video. So why don't I show you what you'll need and we can get started. Okay, so here is everything you're going to need to make your Anteater puppet at home. First things first, you're going to need the template, very kindly illustrated by Ross Collins. The template is available to download. You can find the address in the description of the video where you can download this template from as a PDF, then you can print it off at home. The next thing you're going to need is a piece of cardboard. This is an old cereal box. I made my Anteater out of an old Easter egg box in lockdown. Any cardboard that's thin enough for you to cut with scissors is best. Speaking of which, you're going to need some scissors as well. You're also going to need some thin sticks. These are kebab skewers, but you could use pencils, chopsticks, thin garden cane, anything like that. You're going to need a sharp pencil to puncture some holes in the pattern. You're also going to need 4 of these split pins. Now don't worry if you haven't got these at home, I'm going to show you how you can sort of replicate them using either little bits of wire or string to make the Anteater's joints. You're going to need some colouring pencils or perhaps paints or pens, whatever you've got, whatever you want to use to colour in your pattern. You're going to need some tape, quite strong, good tape. I've got masking tape here just so you can see really clearly what I'm doing with it, because if it was clear tape it might be harder to see. But yeah, as long as it's good strong tape. And you're going to need some glue to stick your paper template onto your cardboard. So any kind of clear all-purpose glue or Pritt stick, or I use this sort of craft glue that's used for paper and dries quite quickly. But yeah, anything like that that can stick paper to cardboard will be what you'll need. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is stick your template down onto your piece of cardboard. Now, my template doesn't quite fit on the piece of cardboard without overlapping some of these seams, which are going to weaken the shapes of the Anteater. So I'm going to roughly, not around the dotted lines just yet, I'm just going to roughly cut around my sections of Anteater body. Like so. There we go. I roughly cut around those, just so then I can kind of tessellate them and make them fit onto my bits of cardboard without overlapping the seams. That way the cardboard will keep its strength and the Anteater puppet will be nice and solid. Something like that, nearly. I might put that leg on there. Okay, so now all my bits of paper are glued down onto my cardboard. I would always recommend, especially if you're using a very sort of runny liquid glue like I've got, putting your glue onto the cardboard first. Otherwise it might wrinkle and distort the paper and then you'll end up with lots of creases when you put it flat onto the cardboard. So yeah, I would say always apply it to the cardboard first and then press your paper pieces down and smooth it from the inside out. So you're working out any air bubbles and creases. I've got a little one there that's driving me slightly mad, but I'll get over it. So you work from the inwards out to even out the glue on the surface. Now all you've got to do is wait for it to dry. I might go and make a cup of tea. My cup of tea is present and correct. So the glue is dry, and the next 2 stages, which are colouring in the Anteater and puncturing the holes in the body parts, are easier to do before you cut out all the separate pieces. So I would say keep them on your cardboard for now for this next step. So colouring in your Anteater, you can let your imagination go crazy. It can be whatever colour you want it to be. You can go mega detailed, you can go broad brush strokes. I'm going to use colouring pencils, but obviously you can use pens or paints or whatever you like. And yeah, it can be any colour you want your Anteater. Let your imagination go crazy. I'm going to be a bit purist and emulate Ross's very brilliant Anteater from the original book, using some grey, some black, a bit of yellow on his tail, so that my puppet looks identical to Ross's illustrations, which I used to make my puppet for the finished film. So Time for another time lapse while I colour this thing in. So now all of your Anteater sections are coloured in. The next step is to puncture the holes in the pattern, wherever you can see the black dots, there, with your sharp pencil. Now the size of the hole that you're going to puncture in the cardboard should be dictated by what things you're going to use as your puppet's joints. So if you're using these split pins, you want to make sure the hole you puncture is slightly wider than the pin itself. Or if you're using string or wire, you want to make sure that the hole you're puncturing is sort of twice the width of your string. You want the joints to basically be quite free. As you can see from my puppet here, they have a lot of swing to them so that when you're walking the Anteater, they misbehave and do their own thing. You don't want the joints to be too stiff. So, using your pencil, puncture through the cardboard. Be careful not to catch your fingers on the other side, but pierce through and push all the way through each of those holes on the cardboard, making sure you leave enough room for the split pin or the wire or the string that you're going to use on your puppet. Last one. There. So all the holes are punctured. There aren't holes in these two legs or the head or the back end of the tail because we're going to attach the joints to the other side of these body parts so that you don't see pins and bits of string sticking out the front side to keep the puppet really clean. I'm not sure you can see that from the side, but the head is stuck onto the kind of top end of my pin, so that from the front, you can't see the joints, they're hidden. But I'll explain more on that shortly. So next step after this is to cut out all your body parts. So now all of your Anteater's body parts are cut out. The next step is to give him his joints. Joints that are going to go in his legs, in his head, and in his tail. So to do this, I'm going to use these brass split pins, but if you don't have these at home, I'm going to show you a technique you can use using wire or string that's very similar to give the Anteater his articulation. So first thing we're going to do is cut or rip off a little bit of tape, and with the sticky side up, push your pin down into the tape. So I'm going to flip it over so you can see. So I'm pushing the pin up through the tape, there, so it popped up that way, and then, let's use the head as an example, turning the head over and imagining that that is a complete circle. I'm going to stick the head of that brass pin into the middle of that circle. Let's see. And press down all around the outside. And then you'll have some excess tape hanging over the edge. I would just trim that off so you can't see it from the front. There we go. And then next step, so we've got the head, so then take the neck, push the kind of long legs of the split pin through that hole and open them up that way to create your puppet's joint. Now it might be that the ends of the pins are a little bit pointy, or sometimes if they're quite long pins they can stick out and you can see them from the front, so I bend them over again on themselves, just pushing the excess of the pin back on itself like that. So you can, so you don't see it from the front, and it makes them slightly less pointy. And now the legs are a bit different because the two legs are going to hang off the same pin through one of these holes. So repeat the same process that you just did with the head. So get a piece of tape, push the pin into the sticky side, So it pops out the other side like that. And then again, imagine there's a little circle on the end of the cardboard, and put that pin head right in the center of that circle. Press the tape around, secure it, trim off the excess, like so. And then, so you're taking the leg that doesn't have the hole in, put that through the body, and then attach the other leg, the other side, before you then open up all the pins on the other side. And there you have both legs hanging off that same pin. Now, if you open up that pin too tightly, his legs don't move very well, and they need to move quite freely so that you can walk and use them to catch them on the floor when you're animating your anteater, which I'll show you later. So a way of making this less stiff is to either pinch the kind of pins back towards each other slightly, and also just to kind of work the cardboard a little bit to kind of free it up, as it can be that the pin just gets a bit too tight. There you go, already that's a little bit better, moving a bit freer. But yeah, you want them to be pretty free moving. You don't want them to be too stiff or rigid because of the cardboard or the pin. So just keep sort of playing with it until you can get a more kind of free movement in the legs. And then you're going to do the same thing with the back legs. And for the tail, you're going to stick your pin sticking up sort of on the anteater's bottom there, and put your tail on. So for those of you at home that don't have any of the brass split pins, I'm going to show you a technique that you can do to create the puppet joints using just string, or really thin wire would work as well, but I figured string is most likely to be the thing that you have lying around at home. So for each joint, I'd cut a piece of string that's sort of 10 to 15 centimeters long. I'll demonstrate this on the head and neck of the anteater. So then rip yourself a bit of tape, as thin as possible really, while still keeping its strength. So I've sort of gone for like 5mm, little bit of tape, and press that tape over the rope at the sort of roughly the halfway point. Doesn't have to be too precise. There we go. And then, similar to the split pins, you want to tape your string into the sort of center of the kind of end of that anteater's head. Imagine there's a circle. You want to put the kind of tape bang in the middle there to create your joint. So do that. Press it down firmly either side. So you've got that. Then gather up each end of the string and post it through the correlating hole in the puppet. So I'm posting it through his neck joint there. That was easier than anticipated. And then with a split pin, you would unfold the brass pins that way, but actually with the string you don't have to secure the string in the same way. You can just gather both kind of excess strands together on the opposite side and tape them down in place, pulling it relatively tight. You don't want any kind of excess string in the gap. You want the other body parts to be quite taut next to the body. And then once that's stuck down, trim off the excess. And the joint behaves exactly the same way, just using a piece of string instead. Next step in making your own anteater puppet is control rods. Now, my anteater puppet had 3 control rods, 2 long ones, one on the head and one on the body for walking, and then a sneaky little third one on his back front leg. That means he could pick things up, he could scratch his nose, he could do all sorts of things. Now, the reason that rod is shorter is so the weight of it didn't throw off his swinging front leg. I still wanted it to be able to move even when I wasn't operating it. So yeah, I've kept that rod short to allow his legs still to move. So for control rods, I've been using, I use kebab sticks. You could use chopsticks or pencils, or yeah, things that you maybe don't mind cutting up, or thin bits of garden cane. I've cut a smaller length for his front arm rod, and I've also trimmed off the pointy ends of the long length ones. So to attach your rods to your puppet, you're going to need 2 rectangles of tape, like so, and you're going to sandwich one end of your kebab stick in tape, like so. So your kebab stick is going to go halfway along that rectangle. And then you can do the same thing on the other side with this bit of tape. But then don't stick the kind of exposed ends together. Keep those apart. apart so that you end up with sort of a capital letter T of tape on the top of your rod, and then press those two exposed sticky sides onto your puppet. Now for the body rod, I stuck my rod equidistant between his leg joints so that when you twist this rod, it makes him walk. So I would advise you do the same thing. So then stick that down like so, making sure it's all down nice and firm. And then do the same thing for your head and your front arm rod. So we've got our control rods on our puppet, but you may notice that this anteater has quite a droopy tail. It looks quite sad, and you may notice that the tail is knocking into the back legs of your anteater. So we need to add a little kind of cardboard blocker underneath the tail to keep it lifted, to keep him perky, and to stop it from sort of fouling his back legs when he walks. So to do that, I've cut a tiny little strip. It's sort of just under 1 centimetre wide of the same cardboard that I stuck my paper template onto. It can be really thin, cereal box kind of cardboard. I'm going to fold it sort of just to one side of centre, like that, to make a little sort of pyramid. Then halfway between centre and each side, I'm going to fold it down one way. You see that? There you go, down one way, and up another way. And then stick those two ends onto each other so that I make a sort of little triangle, like that, a triangle with a kind of long bit sticking off the side. And then I'm going to stick that little triangle down underneath my anteater's tail, like so. I'll show you. So that it blocks his tail from dropping down onto his front feet. You can use the same glue that you stuck your paper template onto your cardboard with, or you can use tape. You might just have to take off the tail and the back leg to stick it down so that tape doesn't foul the legs. But yeah, attach your little triangle blocker underneath your anteater's tail to stop it from drooping. So there we have it. You've made your own anteater puppet inspired by Ross Collins's book, What Does an Anteater Eat? The final step is to animate your anteater. Let me show you how this anteater puppet walks. The trick is to try and catch the different sets of feet at opposite times. Lean into the back legs, lean into the front legs, back legs, front legs, back legs, front legs. So if you can catch them at those different times, then your anteater can walk and you're just letting the legs swing and do their own thing. Or your anteater can sit down and you can swap onto that front hand rod for scratching or picking things up. And this anteater is also very good at yoga. He does a good downward dog stretch that way. Enjoy animating and making your anteater puppets. And if you haven't already, check out What Does an Anteater Eat on the Little Angel Theatre's YouTube channel until the 1st of September.